All right, so let's get started. Everyone, welcome to Elemental's third seminar. We're lucky to have our guest ChrisTFer here, head coach of SSG and coach of a lot of other really great teams and things. So I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, okay. So thanks everyone for having me here. I think when I was asked to do the seminar and stuff, I obviously had to have a think about what I wanted to talk about. Um, and one thing I do a lot of private coaching these days. Obviously, like I coach SSG and I coach professionally, but I spend a lot of time during the week coaching privately too. And I feel like there is one thing that when I coach players who are in this kind of like I don't know, tier four, tier three, tier two type of system where they're starting to scrim and they're just moving on from ranked play and they get into some sort of like organized play is I think that people still fundamentally misunderstand the basic macro of Overwatch 2. All of this obviously didn't happen in Overwatch 1 because we had two tanks and all of this, but in my opinion, and what I'm going to try to demonstrate in the next hour or so, is effectively, since Overwatch 2 has came out, the game is played in one of two ways, one or two formations, as I like to call it. I come from England, so I do football, and obviously the formation, like the way that everybody sits together in football is really important. I don't know, depending on where everybody's from, if in other sports they do formations too, or if it ends up being the same sort of thing. And what I want to say is that it almost always breaks down into one of two things, either what we call like a back three, like I call it, where we're going to have flex support, we're going to have main support, and normally we're going to have hit scan, if you can read my scribbles, playing relatively stacked with a tank plus one. And basically, this comp ends up being what we would maybe call like a push pull comp, where its win condition is fundamentally to move forward and to move backwards, and it doesn't care so much about the sides of the map. And what I've done is I've gotten maybe 3 games from the special professional client, which only me has access to because I'm so cool. And I'm going to try to break down this comp and the other comps too. The second one I should say is this idea of like what I maybe call is like a wide system, where actually what we're going to have is like we're going to have flex support normally with the hit scan, but the specifics aren't super important. And then we're actually going to have main support and then the flex DPS um, playing. And actually, what's going to happen is we're going to really try to play the sides of the map, and we're going to give a little bit of space down the middle. So these comps kind of fundamentally, um, these comps fundamentally operate the opposite in a lot of ways. And I think that what's important for us to understand is like if we go to our screen right now, this one should be relatively obvious, right? The orange team over here, Team Peps, they're going to play with Lucio Kiri. So fundamentally, this is going to probably be a back three comp. Most of the time, we're going to see Lucio Kiri playing together. A primary goal is going to be to peel for each other, and then also the hit scanner is going to be on a similar angle. Whereas what we're almost certainly going to see from Team Liquid here, and obviously Team Liquid is the team that I've scrimmed the most, played the most this season. They love this wide style of Overwatch, right? Where what you're going to see in a lot of situations is RuPaul and Vega, they're not going to look to play together. They're actually going to look to kind of play separate angles. And we're going to talk first about how this comp is played. Then we're going to kind of talk about how the comps match up when both teams are at a high level playing. And then I'm going to explain why this comp ultimately is the comp that in most of the time ends up winning the tournament, and obviously the tournament that we just had in Stockholm, it was the European teams that won, and they very much played this style, very little wide Overwatch. And I would like, obviously, I know we're recording and this might go out on YouTube and it's going to be shared. Like, I would like for my own ego to kind of put a disclaimer that obviously the more we get into these like comps and specific heroes, things change. What I'm hoping to do today is to kind of provide a very base level understanding of like the most fundamental Overwatch style, but the nitty gritty is obviously more significant. So if someone does see this and well, Chris, he's so basic, he doesn't understand Overwatch. Yeah, okay, maybe that's true. But in this situation, what we're trying to do is we're just trying to make something that's palatable for everybody, that kind of gives the base ideas. So yeah, I think we can then look to get started. So immediately what we're going to see when both teams roll out is we're going to see how both teams look to set up, right? What we're probably going to see, my guess, is that we're going to see someone from Team Liquid look to take this high ground, and then they're potentially going to look to push this way. And what we're going to look to see is the concept is going to be quite similar. I always use like League of Legends as an example for this, because in League of Legends, obviously, we've got wrong color. We've got 3 lanes, right? We've got top, mid, bot. And the idea of when we're doing these split push comps is if the enemy team goes bot, we need to push top. And this is largely going to be the same thing here, right? We're going to have like maybe this is like the middle lane, which again, Team Liquid's comp. We're going to try to focus on Team Liquid at the start. Are going to focus on. They're not going to be as interested in the middle lane, and instead, what they're going to look to do is they're going to want to win through top and bot lane. And what they're going to do is they're going to effectively allow Team Peps to make a decision. And they're going to say, well, if you decide that you want to send your back free or your more stacked comp or your push pull this top side, you're going to see the movement from Team Liquid is going to be to give space to turn backwards on the top lane, and you're going to see the 2 people that are in bot lane look to impact the game like this. And obviously what we're expecting is the same thing on the opposite side, right? If Team Liquid decide that they want to go to this point side and control this lane, what we would hopefully expect if Team Liquid are playing properly, which, they don't always do, but sometimes they do, we expect the people that are on this top side of the map to be in a situation where they impact the game. And obviously in this situation, they're going to play with ball, which is going to kind of allow Ball can kind of, he's like Twisted Fate or something in League of Legends, right? He can TP top, then bot, then mid, and he can do everything. And I think that for now we'll focus very much on Team Liquid, and you can see that when this comp is played correctly, it's pretty tricky to deal with. We have tons of ways to get kills, right? Like Kiri and Wu are both very, very good at 1v1ing, and you have to be pretty good to beat this style of comp. So we're going to set up, we're going to get some sort of scout, and immediately you're going to start to see some sort of base movement. And already within the first 5 seconds of the map, we're going to see that Team Liquid have understood the assignment. All 4 of their highly paid coaches are clearly doing their jobs correctly, because we immediately have this split, this pull between my support number 1 and support number 2. And like we said, what we're expecting is that Team Peps need to make a decision. It's very difficult for them to attack both in some situations. We'll get on to how you beat this comp later. Instead, they're going to make a decision to go left or to go right or to go top or to go bot. And then what we're going to look to see is, can Team Liquid predict the movement? Can they survive without having to waste Kiri TP and Kiri Suzu? And can the other people on the map impact the game in some way? So we'll see what happens here. So we start to see, obviously, they start to go cage, and then you start to see this, right? We start to see exactly what we would expect from Team Peps in terms of everybody's taking this top side. Vega and Tree have recognized, okay, we're getting dived. They're actually happy to pull all the way back to spawn in this situation. And then it's going to be up to RuPaul and Zera to either look to go impact the game here, or obviously in some moments like this one, we can cap point, which is effectively impacting the game, right? I'm sure we're all kind of aware that Overwatch is fundamentally won and lost when somebody steps onto the point or doesn't step onto the point if you're an SSG fan. And this is more or less like a skill check, like, can both teams or can Team Liquid specifically, can we do a good job of recognizing the enemy team's movement and move it without having to die effectively? One thing that we should also point out here is the second that Tree realizes he's no longer under pressure, right? Like the entire of the team pushed Tree, so he went back to spawn. He's then going to make some sort of decision to retake the angle. It's really important if we play this comp that our decision making in terms of when we get back into the map and once we start to impact the game again, we want to actually be really, 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 really fast. If we're like scared and we say, "Oh, I'm pushed in spawn, I'm just going to wait and spawn," then the team that has the Lucio, the stacked comp, is just going to kind of run everything over. So it's really important that as Team Liquid's aggro is now turned to the other side, right? Like again, if we go to the overhead, you're going to see all of the arrows pointing towards this side, again, what we want is Vega and Tree to now attempt to impact the game as best as possible. And effectively, what the matchup is going to look like is it's going to be team peps that are kind of playing whack-a-mole, if you guys know what whack-a-mole is, where they're going to just keep like, trying to attack the left and then attack the right and attack the left. And if Team Liquid are able to continue to survive this, if their movement is good, if their anticipation is good, they will always get opportunities, because once Lucio uses AMP, he becomes a much less significant hero, often like very easy to get picks here. So again, I think when we look at this with the icons on you, again, you start to see the same thing. We see two groups. Neither group has been in any significant problem, and then we're going to be able to win this bottom side of the map, and then we're going to be able to kind of like fight for point control. And then ultimately, because we get the first flip, what we're going to see is going to be a situation where, again, they look to swing this side. This time, Tree doesn't have the correct movement, or doesn't kite the right way, or doesn't get healed, or whoever we're blaming. But effectively, the other side of the map, which is the side that Kiri and Trace are on, have significantly impacted the fight because we've got first flip. And at the same time, we force Traces, cooldowns, and now we're in a situation where we look for more kills. And because a lot of our heroes have really good 1v1, this whole time the map was surrounded. And I think, again, if we look at the movement on like a really macro level, and we can speed it up, what you'll see most of the time is I should be able to draw a circle around Team Peps. And what you're going to see in almost every situation is that the Team Liquid are going to have 2 to 3 angles around them. It's going to be like a surround comp. I sometimes call this like the boa constrictor, because what it wants to do is it just wants to they want to wrap themselves around you, and then eventually they're just going to kind of squeeze. And hopefully eventually something's going to fall over. And you see, even as the fight breaks out, even as Tree is going to die, you're going to see in every single moment I pause this, we still have, I should use a different color, blue is not going in videos, we still have this like surround. There is still this understanding of how we play it, how we wrap ourselves around Team Liquid, and how we bully them out. And even once they get to point, and even as Tree's dead, we still have the same thing. You know, Zera has a slight angle, Infected has a slight angle. Like, we still have angles around them, and this is very much how our comp wants to play. And one thing that I think is maybe one of the most important things that I maybe should have said at the start, but when we're comparing the two comps, okay, if we call it the wide comp, which is the one that Team Liquid are doing now, the only thing that matters in this comp is positioning. Okay, I always say positioning. Is this how I spell position? Could be right, could be wrong. Who knows? Positioning is king. If we don't have good ults, but we have good position, this is the most important thing, you know? Objective isn't important. It's just about position. As long as we control the map, our comp always has a chance to win. When we talk about this like stacked comp, or this this push-pull comp, which we'll get onto later, the most important thing is always the objective. This is OBJ. And then the second is the ult. Actually, in this push-pull comp, the map control and the map position, it's somewhere down here in third or fourth in terms of priority. It's like, as long as we have good ults and we have good objective control, 9 times out of 10. And again, I'm going to show you a brilliant example of how Twisted Minds won playing against like a really tricky style. On a difficult map by using this. But this is really what we want. So even though, like, obviously, like Team Liquid died first and stuff like that, because we always had control of the map, and because we always had control of the positions, eventually life is going to turn out okay, you know. And we're going to be able to, obviously, there's a lot of trades back and forth, and Infected gets a really good trade and doesn't die. And what we're going to look for is we're going to look for the same sort of things. Obviously, we're going to be walking out of spawn now, but again, which side of the map is Team Peps on? Well, obviously, in this situation, Team Peps is taking this side, the point side of the map. So what we expect is someone, or maybe even 2 people from Team Liquid, to use this side of the map as aggressively as possible. This is the League of Legends lane, which is free. This is the area of the map where our comp has to take advantage, because we can't just fight back to front on point. And I think that, again, you'll see a pretty good understanding of this from the Team Liquid guys. You know, like, we're gonna fight for point, and then can RuPaul go forward and take the angle really aggressively? This is a Kiri, but we're really starting this space is ours. I'm gonna look to walk forward. I'm gonna look to walk forward. I'm gonna miss every shot, but can't be helped. What's Tree doing? Well, Tree is really using this lane as best as possible. He understands that if the enemy team is on this side of the map, this other side, the other side that I'm on, this is the one where I have to impact the game. And then obviously we get to a situation where if we look at his position, it's hard to argue he hasn't taken the map here. You know, he's now in a situation where he's behind them. He's in their spawn. But again, if I do the little check, does Team Liquid have the boa constrictor on? Well, absolutely, right? Like Team Peps is somewhere in the middle here, and we have all of these different angles around, surrounding kind of in a situation where we're bullying it out. And eventually, even though Tree doesn't have a pocket, he's going to distract the Kiri. And you can kind of see that over time things are going to start to get a little bit tricky for Peps, to the point where all 5 of us are on point. Again, if we look at Tree's movement, if we were to graph his movement, he starts here and he goes all the way like this, like he absolutely uses every inch of the map which is free. Every single side that is free, he's going to use, to the point where he's done a full lap of the map. And now we're in a situation where we still maintain position, right? Like, do we have control of these high grounds? Well, effectively, yes. And even though this has potential to go bad because Vega's died, and because like Peps might get the map flip, I would still say that ultimately the fundamental macro and the fundamental way that Team Liquid need to play this comp has been successful. They might very well lose this fight. In fact, it looks almost impossible to see them winning it. But Overwatch is an FPS game, unfortunately, right? So even if we do the right thing, we do everything correctly, if one of my players just loses a 1v1 or dies or does whatever, then we're not going to win, Unfortunately, I'm yet to find a way to coach getting gapped. Once I can coach that, I'm going to be what a coach I'm going to be. So now what we have to do is we have to think about, well, how are we going to retake this? What are we going to do to retake this? And fundamentally, what we are going to try to do is we're not going to be able to just push down main, because that's not what our comp is designed to do. We're going to need to try to distract and take some space around the side of the map, and then use the other side again. What we want to do, our goal of the retake is not, well, obviously it's just to win the fight, but that's too basic. That's not what we're talking about, right? We're not saying just win the fight. Our goal of the retake is to reset map position to the point where we have some sort of advantage in position, and then we're going to play, and then we're going to boa constrict, and we're going to strangle them, and we're going to smother them. So what I expect to see is, I expect to see 1 or 2 people attack the point. The point is a brilliant way in this comp to get started, because this is going to force at least 1, but more realistically maybe 2, 3, sometimes even 5 people from the enemy team to come to point, which should then again open up this side of the map for Tree or RuPaul to take as best as possible. And you see it's going to start slow. We're going to find some sort of space. So immediately Infected takes an area of the map behind them. So immediately we already kind of have this surround cooking, and then they're going to look to fight us in cage. They're going to go early on us in cage. We're going to get cleared. But again, what's going to happen is this right side of the map is going to get opened up. And what we need to see for Team Liquid is, are we able to kind of use that space as quick as possible? Immediately Infected sees the space, he rolls into the space, and now the push-pull team has used a lot of resources. And again, you can start to see what's going to happen. We're all in a circle. Again, we have angles. And more realistically, this angle is once again going to be opened up. And we are going to try to surround. We're going to try to smother as best as possible. One advantage that the Team Peps comp has is, A, that their ults are almost always stronger. The beat push is incredibly powerful. But we have the option to tempo. We can play effectively bad Overwatch and just run through the middle of the map and catch kills. And because all of the heroes on Team Liquid are pretty squishy, and we don't have really good peel, and we don't really have any significant support ults, this type of beat push has a really good chance to win in a lot of ways. But what we do see, or at least what we can see, is even though we've lost this fight, we still see correct fundamentals here from Liquid, right? We still have our groups. We've still taken the map. We're still playing around as much as possible. RuPaul ends up making a decision to carry out, which on paper seems pretty crazy, and then presumably is going to be one which is going to be punished. And maybe Team Peps from this moment should be in a position to win the map, even though they don't. But I suspect we're going to see similar things from Team Liquid. We're going to see some attempt to take the map first. Always the first step is take the map. What you guys have noticed is, hopefully you've noticed, is Team Liquid, the blue team, never stacked together. Never once are we stacked together. Never once are we just saying 3, 2, 1, let's go. It's always slow, methodical. It involved in how we take the map. Again, Infected is going to get behind. This is going to apply some sort of pressure. Then Zera is going to find an opportunity. And let's have a look. wow, what a surprise. We have the same sort of thing. We're taking this side of the map. We forced the point, which forced Kiri and Tracer to come back. That then gave us an opportunity to take this side. And now again, we're starting to set up our groups and we're starting to set up our ability to control the map. And we start to go wide, and then obviously Team Peps need to make a decision. And then in this moment, the people that's free is Tree and is Vega. Again, we're constantly doing this. Every single time I've paused the game and brought up the overhead, it's always Team Peps in the middle, and it's always Team Liquid surrounding them, forcing the point, being as annoying as possible, to the point where eventually this time we win the deathmatch. They didn't find a kill with their Kiri rush, and we just have too much damage, and we just have too many angles, and it's going to be too hard. One thing that this comp, especially with ball, can do is if we can set up our angles and poke early, we have so much pick potential. Like this is almost always a winning play. We can go early. We can attempt to burn some important cooldowns. So important cooldowns in this comp is going to be the Lucio amp speed and in the Kiriko cleanse. If we get one or maybe both of these cooldowns in spawn, then the ability for this Lucio comp to sustain and find a push is really, 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 really tricky. So I think that we're probably pretty happy with this decision. If we look at, are we using the map? We're absolutely using as much of the map as possible. Again, we're really wrapping around this pool side. That's Kiri cleanse forced early, which means that as we start to go in theory, the Wu Yang ult should be pretty effective. That being said, Dip hit the pulse bomb and infected trolled, so they're gonna lose. But even through losing, and even through making from individual mistakes and micro mistakes, and they're going to rely on some sort of insane clutch here. Fundamentally, the reason I chose this is I think that this is one of the best examples we're going to find of how we play the map, how we play this comp. Again, at the risk of repeating myself, we haven't seen any fast tempo, low IQ, let's just push. It's always been quite methodical. They've always been pretty good at finding the space around the map. A lot of the time, maybe their mechanics didn't match up to how they needed to play. I would say that this style of comp here it's pretty. You have to be pretty mechanically good. If you don't have really insane mechanics, it's too easy to get picked and our whole comp to fall apart. And we'll get on to the second round, and I'm aware that I'm droning on a little bit, so I'll attempt to speed up because we still have quite a bit that I wanted to get through. But I think you'll start to see some of the same concepts here. One thing that's important to note is the advantage that the red team should have is the ability to push main and the ability to push the tank. Ram is unfortunately, in my opinion, the worst designed hero in the game, and actually the number one ruiner of fun for me personally, because actually fundamentally this Ram is a cheat code character. It's a hero that even if 5 people push it, will just survive because it was designed in Overwatch 2, where the stats are just unbelievably out of control. If this was any other hero, I'm talking Rhine, Sigma, Zarya, if that's a Z, Orisa, any other tank in the game, this comp will be able to push Bane and bully the tank that doesn't have speed. And this would be a big win condition. One of the problems Team Peps are going to run into is the main win condition is to push main and kill the tank, but it's pretty tricky in a lot of situations. But what I expect to see is already what we see. I got 2 groups. I have support with DPS and I have support with DPS. And I think we're going to see the same thing. If I can take space around this side of the map, I will. If I can take space around the other side of the map, I will look to do so. And obviously the big advantage we're going to have in this situation, and I guess it was true in Lighthouse too, is Team Liquid are going to play a tank that has fundamentally really good objective control. This is going to allow everybody else in Team Liquid to play the map and look for picks and stuff like that, because we have a tank that can just stand on point. If we stand still against this comp, all it's going to take is one Freya ball or one Wu Yang ball, or in this situation, a Kiri headshot, and you'll start to see us take the map. And once we get set up, again, I've got my groups. I have as much early pressure as possible, and now Team Peps have to start to make a decision. You're like, am I able to push down main, or do I need to do something? One thing that a lot of teams do, whenever I coach teams, I see this a lot. I see a Lucio Tracer group. I see it all the time. In my opinion, this is almost always trash. I almost never like a Lucio Tracer group. I think that the heroes don't synergize well. It's very rarely how the comp wants to be played. But they feel in this moment that we need to attack the sides. But obviously what's going to happen is if we start to send Lucio on the side fight against Wu Yang and Kiri, that's a losing matchup because those heroes are much better. But again, we're going to control the map. We're going to see Zera here at the bottom of the screen. We're going to see Vega. And what ultimately is going to have to happen is Team Peps are going to have to pick a side. In this moment, it looks pretty likely we're gonna pick this side. So again, our eyes are going to be on the other characters to see if we can impact the game from the other side. And again, we're going to be able to win the cooldown trade quite nicely. We're going to force the Zarya back, and immediately everybody's just going to take wide positions again. Again, we're going to see exactly how we would maybe expect this comp to be played. Again, Team Peps are going to make a push on this left side. So we're going to see, can people on the right side start to swing? You immediately see Tree looks for a more aggressive angle. You see Infected looks to take the space on the right side. And again, we've effectively survived the push. And the second we survive this push, if we go check, okay, I don't have Amp, I don't have either Kiri cooldown, I don't have any Zarya bubbles. Our comp over here, it's like it's resource intensive. If I have all of my resources, it's strong. But this comp on the left here, this isn't a resource comp. This is a left click comp. All we need is the ability to shoot our gun. We don't need ults. We don't need cooldowns. We just need position and the ability to shoot. So the second that we survive this bubble wave and this amp wave, things can get really, really, really ugly quite fast. Like there's a lot of ways to die, and you can kind of see Peps are just holding on for dear life in this moment and hoping nobody gets picked. And again, you're going to say, oh, maybe Lucio needs to go right, but we're just being peppered. And even though we haven't found a kill here, we're up to 50%, and there's only been one kill the entire map. And this is very, very much how this comp wants to operate. So hopefully we've done like a decent job of explaining this side, this blue side, like how we play this wide comp. It's all around positioning. It's all around taking the map. So then the question is going to be, well, how do we start to win if we're on the other side of the thing? The first thing is, if we can control the objective, we can force the enemy team to try to push and try to play. That's not going to be possible in this situation. So instead, and this is why I think that the Lucio with the Tracer is often very, very overrated. What I really like is the idea of, if both of their healers are having to heal each other, something will die. So in this situation, if Kiri and Wu Yang are both let's say we're on Freya, and let's say we're healing Tracer. If I can get my Tracer behind the enemy team, so either attacking Wu Yang or attacking Kiri, and I force their supports to have to heal each other, then something, either the Freya or the Tracer, or in this situation, the Ram, is going to be left without heals. So what we want to do, if we're blue team, if we're ever playing one of these comps, is if we can't push the tank, we need to do something that disrupts the heal. And I think you're going to start to see that in this moment here. Dip is going to go in behind. He's going to try to live. He's going to just about get it. But then he's going to be in a situation where he's not doing it a lot, but he's effectively attracted the attention of the backline. And what we've now forced is we've forced the blue team into a back three, which is fundamentally not how they want to play, right? They want to play is like a 2-2-1, right? Where the tank is the one and both supports pocket 1 DPS. Right now, we've forced them into a back three, which means somewhere on the map there is a hero which is isolated and is unable to be healed. And in this moment, it is the tank. And it's all because our Tracer was able to make a little bit of space and do a little bit. And obviously, Ram needs a little bit of help in order to get him off the map. But you start to see this is the best way for our combo. If we're Team Peps now, this is our best idea to break it, is to do something fundamentally where we get in behind. And I think you'll start to see something similar as we go here. You're going to start to see Dip go in, and immediately Dip is going to attack the support. So what that's going to mean is we are now going to have to stand still, and we're going to have to peel for each other. Again, this is going to leave something potentially isolated on point, and then this is going to be where our win condition is. And even though I complain about Ram being unkillable, in these moments, because the supports are peeling for each other and ulting each other and doing everything to each other to stay alive, we do eventually bleed out. Like, even if Ram is the tankiest here in the game, if he doesn't get heals, he can't do everything that he needs to do. And I think within these 9 minutes and 20 seconds, I think we start to see from both perspectives how we want to play. On one, we have to attack behind the double flex comp. We have to start to attack the supports. We have to pull them together, and then our push pull should almost always be stronger. So I'll move on to the next map now, but I think that to me that's like a pretty good example of both teams' comps and like a base idea of how we're going to play. And I think that we will hopefully get better examples and we will get into more detail. Okay, so it's a 50-50 between the king's rows. I'm going to gamble on the bottom one. And that's why you always gamble. It's perfect. Okay, so we're going to get onto King's Row. And there's a few things that we need to understand. Is Koth, obviously the ability to force the point is going to be really significant. On payload here, especially on a map like King's Row, it looks really tricky for my side to connect. And one thing we've got to ask ourselves is like, well, this map in general, like I think everybody knows, the reason people like King's Row is it's pretty narrow, right? There isn't going to be many flanks. It's pretty much just a straight line. But if we load into the game and we ask ourselves the question, well, do we have the same ideas? Well, what do we think? You know, this comp to me, obviously, like clearly, is a wide comp, right? What we're almost certainly going to see is a DPS and a support pocketed and in the same sort of thing. Even though almost every hero on our screen minus Wu Yang is different, the comp is fundamentally going to play the exact same way. The win conditions, the understanding of positioning. In this situation, well, what have we got? Well, we clearly have a narrow comp here. Like we clearly have a comp that wants to play together. So this brings me onto the next point, and I think this is a really, really, really important thing fundamentally to understand is, in this situation, can Twisted Minds play to push a tank? Can they just play to go 5 people down mid? Obviously, we're all muted, so I'm going to answer the question on everybody's behalf. The answer is no. Even though our comp is a push-pull comp, even though our comp fundamentally wants to run down the tank, the map in the situation does not allow us to play that way. So we cannot be in a situation where we are so, oh, our comp needs to play together or we can't win. Life sometimes is going to give you lemons, okay? And in this moment, you're just going to have to make some lemonade. And there's almost nothing that we're going to be able to do about that. So even though right now, Twisted Minds are obviously stacked, and obviously in this situation, T1 has the perfect setup, right? 2 supports attack. Like the 2-2-1 is in effect here. We're going to see TM are like, well, there's no way that we can just push 5 people main on point because we're just going to die, you know? So we're going to see some sort of attempted adaptation. We're going to see maybe Lucio May take a side, maybe Lucio Cass find a way to go. But you're going to see, because King's Row first point demands you to take different angles, they're still going to find a way to do it. You know, you can see they're grouped up. TM, they like to play grouped up as much as possible. But, you know, like I said, lemonade is required once lemons are received. So we're going here, and we're going to start to see some sort of like the same idea, right? Like Lucio is going to get in here on the right, like Simple and Quartz are going to push to left. And I think if you be, you know, starts the movies a little bit slow, and we start to pause it in 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's pause it. Well, what have we got here? Well, we have a push-pull comp, but they're mirroring the same style, right? We see this. It's a support plus a DPS, and it's a support plus a DPS, and it's a tank that's on point. And again, even though our comp is as textbook push-pull as possible, we still need to find a situation. We still have to adapt to the situation, and we're gonna see like the same thing on the other side. And then we're going to see Lucio May attempt to control the top right, and we're going to see Quartz look for kills over here. And because we have the RAM and because we are able to control the objective, we are now, because we're capping point, we now force red team or orange team or T1 or whatever we want to call them, many names. We force them to adapt to us. Listen, we have objective control. You got to do something now, okay? And they're going to try to stall point with the venture. I think that they're very, very desperate for Sigma to not touch point. The second the Sigma drops to touch point, that becomes all of a sudden we can push. You know, like our comp has a win condition. And obviously, because Quartz is the best player in human history, he's going to find a timing to poke. And eventually, we're going to kind of out wide the white comp, which the wide comp, not the white comp. And it shouldn't always happen. Now, that's going to be first point, and we're going to feel fantastic about this, right? And now again, we're going to have to ask ourselves an important question. If we fast forward, you know, they're going to do a little bit of spawn camp and it's going to go badly. If we ask ourselves the question right now, if we're T1 in this moment, how do we set up our how do we set up our wide comp? it doesn't feel great, you know? Like, this angle is completely useless. Obviously, we can shoot main. This flank is really tricky. If we wanted to set up this 2-2-2-1, it's almost impossible. Like, King's Row is not going to allow us to do that. So King's Row is again now giving red team lemons. So again, what T1 are going to have to do is they're going to have to suck it up, and they're just going to have to make some lemonade. You know, they are going to stack their supports, and they are going to play everybody together, even though they don't necessarily want to play like this. This is what's forced the map. This is why at the highest level we talk about like coaches drafts and we talk about these things, because no matter how good T1 are, there is no setup that they can do where they get to kind of play wide. And one thing that we're going to talk about later is there is, in my opinion, there is a theory that even these Korean teams and these high level teams, in my opinion, I think they get it wrong in terms of they actually elect to hold here because they don't want to just let the cart push another 10 meters because like they would lose a fight. And whereas what I would maybe say is because this area of the map, it's so easy to get our setup right. We can get two people in here, we can have people up here, we can really like if we close our eyes and we think, well, how do I set up a 2-2-1 setup? How do I set up a wide setup? It's really easy on this section of the map, but it's really not easy on this section of the map. And the danger is if all of T1 die right now, because they don't have Lucio, they're not actually going to get set up for the second fight. So there becomes like a real dilemma that coaches and teams have to decide is, do we literally let the payload push the entire of second point so that they have to fight into our God setup? Or do we take one, in theory, bad fight for our comp just so we can get a second one? And obviously, I think that's like a decision that who knows what the right answer is. Maybe I know, maybe I don't know. But again, you're going to see that in this situation, if we look at first point, even though again on paper this is the most push pull comp and this is an incredibly wide comp, on first point both teams said, well, we're going to play wide and you're going to play wide because there's no other alternative. On this streets phase, well, both teams are going to play push pull. Both teams are going to play narrow. Zest isn't going to do the best, and then and effectively all of a sudden TM's comp is just able to overrun the T1 comp because it's a push pull comp. It's really good at this section of the map. And what's going to happen is T1 are going to get forced back a little bit. Now, almost ironically, is this is actually going to massively benefit T1 because they died, but they didn't all die. They ended up letting the payload move to what I was talking about anyway. And now the map gives us opportunities, and you're going to see the same sort of thing. We're going to see a lot of pressure from this side of the map. We're going to see this flank, we're going to see this angle, and we're going to say to TM, well, we now have a wide setup. You now need to solve our problem. And again, the map gets wide. So how did TM play? Well, even though they're a push pull comp, they still want to do something on the flanks. You know, like they still feel like fundamentally we need to do something with width. And then you're going to see in this moment, Zest is going to recognize, well, all of the space behind the push pull comp is behind. We're going to look to bully that out a little bit. We're going to kind of play the spam. And then I think eventually what's going to happen at some point, maybe once the ults kind of go, is you're going to start to see Proud take this right angle in this wide angle. And a few ults are going to go down, but you're more or less going to see this T1 comp. They're going to start to play the width on the map. And now all of a sudden Skewed has taken like slightly more aggressive space. Obviously Zest has aggressive space. Again, they're going to send Lucio May to flank. So T1 are going to be aware, like, okay, yeah, if we match the 2v2 on their side, our comp should win this. Like, this should be good for us. They're going to be able to force an ice block. This is going to be able to slow them down. And then, you know, Proud is going to get a kill. And we're going to get a clean team fight. And then you're absolutely going to start to see the same things if we pause. Well, now T1 can really play the game the way they want to play, right? Everybody has this aggressive angle. Everybody has this wide setup. And I think the reason I like this map so much as an example is is fundamentally you can see how both teams understand how their comp wants to play, but both teams are also very, 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 very good at recognizing when it's just not possible, when the game will not let them play their style, and they're just going to have to suck it up for a while. And then once they get this opportunity, once they're all able to play these positions, like Skewed is going to keep controlling this right flank, but we're still going to have like really, really like aggressive intent. Like Zesters again, we're gonna like this is the same thing that we spoke about with Team Liquid, right? Very, very similar here. Can go here, can take this. We're gonna try to surround them. The boa constrictor is is a foot maybe, and Zest is going to cause problems, and we're going to start to pull the side fight back, and then in this situation it's going to be Skewed which carries the game. And then you look at T1's movement, and it looks very, very elite. This is a very, very good team at this style, like one of the best in the world. And again, I think that this ends up highlighting the macro understanding of both teams, and everything that goes on. Again, it's going to be the same sort of thing. If we look at the setup this time, we're going to have Proud is going to hide, but we're going to have everybody in these wide positions. He's going to get caught, but he's again, even as he's being pushed, he's still brave. He doesn't just run away. He realizes where the space in the map is. He gets a really nice kill, and now obviously, even with this terrible beat, Twisted Minds are in so much trouble. And in the end, from just this hold here, T1 were able to hold for 5 minutes. And at this moment in time, you think TM are in a lot of trouble. So I think this one is pretty useful. This is like really, really, really good example of both teams, like both sides of the coin. So I think we've now spoke a lot about the wide comp, and we spoke a little bit about the narrow, the push-pull comp. So again, I got 2 new Queen Streets. We're going to gamble on this one. What we then need to look for is, well, how come this comp, this narrow comp, always wins? And now we're going to talk a little bit about like the Symmetra. So what I said at the start, or close to the start, was this idea of on the wide comp, positioning is king. We want positioning, and how on this next comp, on this narrow comp, objective is the key. And what you're about to see right now is an absolute masterclass in objective Overwatch. This is what, when I was on London, this is the style. I'm taking all credit. This is the style I invented. Okay, this is pretty much all me, even though I'm not involved in either team whatsoever. Because what you are going to see for the first 4 minutes is TM are not going to win a single team fight. They are barely going to get a single kill. But because they are able to keep getting on the objective, they are in the map. And then once they break through, they're going to win, One thing that's important to understand is when we want to play objective Overwatch, we want to play push-pull Overwatch, and we want to play like our supports together, Sim ends up being a really insane cheat code. If we think quickly, I'll be quick, I promise. If we think quickly about this idea on Ilios, where we talk about this idea of if the wide comp, if the wide comp gets to hold in spawn, for example, so maybe it's this fight here, or maybe it's in a second. Come on, Chris, you're choking under the pressure. Yeah, we've got it. This one where we talk about how powerful this spawn is and how they're able to force resources. If we have a sim, we can TP past this danger zone, this area where the enemy team can set up early and spam us and force our cooldowns and make life hard for us. Sim effectively allows us to cheat and then get an opportunity to get straight onto the objective, where all of a sudden we have a much more favorable time, because once we're on the point, at least we're always winning. Like if you've got point control, you're very rarely losing. So we're gonna watch them walk out, and then both teams are gonna try to take top. Obviously, one thing that the push-pull comp in general is obviously going to be really, really strong at is it can kind of take anywhere on the map that it wants to take. If we send 5 people top, no team is going to be able to fight us for top. They're going to have to use the rest of the map. If Donghak boops us off the map from the start, this is going to make life slightly more uncomfortable for us, but alas, what can we do? So now we're already in a situation where we're retaking. What we're going to look for is T1 are going to try to use the sides. They're going to try to do everything. TM are going to be so aggressive with going down the middle. whilst also stopping the point as much as possible. And this is going to be the key to breaking this comp. And this is going to be the key to why TM are currently the world champions, like why this team is the best in the world. They're going to TP down the middle. And if we look what's happened here, this is what I'm talking about, where the TP cheats Overwatch, because Donghak, he doesn't know how to play against Sim. He knows, well, I'm going to go here, I'm going to slam early because that's my job. Zest is like, well, yeah, I'm going to go here and I'm going to spam early. We're going to get angles because this is what our comp does. We're going to make this area of the map, this area where we TM have to walk up, we're going to make this incredibly difficult. But guess what? They have a sim. So this area of the map is cheated. There is no more. And now we look at Donghak's position. Well, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible for what we want to do. Zest has no angle here whatsoever. And now, not only do we have good pick potential, we can then move the point, and we've effectively ignored the fact that our map position is terrible. And this is super, 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 super key. So the TP itself is good. We're going to get the kill. Immediately, you're going to see, because TM know what they're doing, we're going to see them move the card. All opportunities, somebody is moving the payload. TVNT is going to immediately drop onto it. And Donghak then gets an angle. And again, UB is going to die. And what we're going to do? Well, we're just going to stack our backline in a room, hope to live, and keep moving the point. You can surround us, you can be a boa constrictor, you can strangle us, but as long as this little robot is pushing in my direction, or I guess in a situation in your direction, guess who's winning? It's going to be us, and I think for us, that's just super, 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 super important to understand. Maybe we're not going to win this, but listen, okay, we got a few meters. We now have 10 extra meters. All we got was one kill. The Zest is taking a long time. Donghak's taking a long time. Everything they're doing takes time, but you're never moving the payload, And we're just going to stand and we're going to stack together, and we're going to say, okay, if you dive us, then we're going to play a skill matchup. We're going to say, we can peel your dive and we can shoot you effectively. If we're in a situation where you're not stopping the objective and you don't dive us, then we're just going to win through that. TM do not need to push. This is really, really important. They do not need to tempo forward and push. As long as they have backline in a good position and somebody moving the payloads, we can take our hands off the keyboard. There is a really, 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 really important concept in Overwatch, okay? Which is, let's go right now. Let's imagine that both teams got DDoSed right now, but for whatever reason, their character stayed in the server. Who would win? Well, in this situation, TM would win massively because DDoSed TVNT would push the card all the way because he's the one that's controlling the objective. We spoke about how on King's Row, once TVNT again got onto the point and started to cap it, Red team had to be the ones to play because they no longer had the objective. As long as we have the objective, if the point is ours, or we're capping the point, or we're stood on the payload, or the enemy team isn't stood on the payload, as long as if every single person stood still, took their hands off the keyboard, our team would win. The other team has to find a solution. And that's what TM and that's what these good sim teams and these good brawl teams do, is they're not playing to punish your mistakes necessarily. Obviously, if there's an opportunity, they're going to take it. But instead, they're going to embrace a mindset of, you solve us. We're going to set it up. You solve it. Okay. Our position is good. Our mechanics are good. Everything is good. Do something about it, And in a lot of these situations, it's going to be successful, right? Like TVNT is going to lose his cooldowns. He's going to get hacked. He's going to die. Like Donghak is going to outplay. So they're going to be happy. We say, yeah, well, screw you, TM. We did solve it, like take that, and they're going to die, and they're going to try to die on payload, and then they're going to get some sort of regroup if it's possible, and then T1 are going to get the lead. But again, if we look at this, what's going to happen? Well, T1 are going to set up as early as possible. They're going to get everybody set up early because we want to drain the resources on the way in. But guess what? We got Symmetra, and again, T1 did not fundamentally understand how to play against Sim on this map. Every single time this TP got through. And guess what? All 5 of us are here. All 5 of us are on point. But we've got this. We've got the robot again. And all of a sudden, again, T1 are pressured to start to do something. If you touch point, well, we have 5 people on point. We have Sim and we have Cass and we have a Kitsune. Okay, like we're gonna move the payload. Now UB sees like he has an opportunity to kill onto hit scan and they take it. But TVNT's like, well, guys, I'm gonna move the payload. That's my job. I'm the payload guy. And then In the end, it's going to be more ults. But guess what's still happening? Like, okay, again, T1 are going to win this. Again, T1's mechanically, they're going to win the deathmatch. But what's happened is T1, TM have still just moved it a little bit, and they're still in the game. And this is very much going to be a pattern that you see over and over and over again. We're going to go to Zarya. Maybe Zarya has like slightly more kill potential, has a much better ult, is maybe better in general. But again, you're going to see some sort of situation where we don't want to stand and we're going to fight. We're going to group up as 5, as stacked as humanly possible. And then we're just going to use ults and we're going to try to fight on the payload. In this situation, Simwall is insane. High Noon is good. The beat is really good. We're just going to stand and we're just going to push in a straight line. We're not going to fight the sides. We're not going to do anything with the sides. We're just going to do it. We're going to stop the payload as soon as possible. And again, you look at it, it's like we've been for 3.5 minutes. That's the first time that TM have won a team fight. But the scoreboard's pretty close at this stage, you know what I mean? And again, how are we going to do it? Well, we're going to put our tank on the payload and everybody else is just going to play together, and we're going to spam and we're going to try to make them solve problems. If there's an opportunity to push something with a TP, we're going to do it. But all of this time, T1 have got to solve the problem. A lot of the time, it seems like solving the problem is just shooting Yubi. That seems to be a great problem solve, and we're going to trade ults and we're going to do everything possible. But again, if we look at it, it's going to be very much like a group of people playing playing pretty main. The period is still moving. Quartz ends up making a micro play. We get to tempo forward, and obviously there was a huge death match component to this. But I think if we look at this, if I was the coach of T1, I'd feel pretty hard done to. Like I feel like we've done a lot well in this map, and we're already behind. And the reason we're behind is when TM have advantage, they move the payload a lot. Because we're playing a wide comp and because we're playing to control everything that isn't the middle of the map, we almost by default have to lose through the objective, and that's what you start to see here. And obviously, like as we start to go forward, because we have Lucio and because we have Sim, there is timings where maybe we can TP here and kill stuff, or TP in and kill stuff. But a lot of the times, it's not these aggressive TPs. It's a very, very stacked group of players. It's fundamentally it's a very, very core understanding of objective based Overwatch. And again, I like to blow my own trumpet, but this is very much our entire mantra when we were on London in the Overwatch League. This is very, 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 very much how we were able to beat some incredibly high level teams through fundamental understanding of how our comp works. Again, we're just going to send 4 people here. We're going to look for the kill. Maybe we get it, maybe we don't. But again, what we're doing, well, we're saying, look at this, okay? Right now, there is a boa constrictor, right? TM are surrounded 1, 2, 3, and then Zest is going to go behind. But we are in a lot of trouble here. But if I understand where the space is on the map, I TP, guess what? No longer boa constricted, Now all of us can shoot point. Vigi angle, terrible. Zest angle, pointless. Donghack angle, pointless. Proud angle, almost dead. One TP has effectively unraveled the boa constrictor. I don't know, maybe he's like Steve Irwin or something is Symmetra. Maybe that's the example that we're going for here. And again, the whole time what's been happening, you guys will get sick of me repeating myself over and over and over again, but the payload is moving, the little robot is pushing, and every time if I could press tab right now, which I can't, I guarantee you T1's KD is better. I guarantee they have more limbs. I guarantee they have less deaths, because this always happens. But they're in a lot of trouble in the scoreboard. They're one more team fight away from being in an almost unwinnable position. And this is the power, even on a map like this where ball is strong, where double flex support is strong, where brawl is in theory weak. At the end of the day, this is how this comp can win, and this is what you see. And this is why TM and Alcads beat every single Korean team that they came up against. We just grouped. We're just looking to peel it, looking to outplay it. But every single time we successfully peel ball, this is the only thing that matters. As long as this little guy is moving, nothing that else is happening on the screen matters. This is the only viewpoint which matters. Um, and this is fundamentally what needs to happen. Then we get a really nice outplay on the EMP, and then we obviously a grab. And now the map's just gone at this stage. it's over. There's almost nothing more to say. And obviously, like I think now, like we've kind of seen maybe the gist of all of it, and hopefully we kind of have like an understanding of why this comp is good, but also why the sim is able to break this comp when it's played at a really high level. And I think there's also like obviously an element of this team is obviously mechanically insane. Like every Astro beat was absolutely perfect. Quartz finding really good moments and stuff like that. So I think in terms of the seminar and stuff that I had prepared, I think that's pretty much all I've got. I hope that you guys now have like a base understanding. And I'll say this, I think, in my opinion, since Overwatch 2's came out, I don't think there's been a single meta where one of these two styles hasn't been thing. Either a wide comp where our main support plays wide, Bapilari, obviously all the Wuyang stuff, we saw a lot of Anakiri at times, and then the stack stuff, which is obviously mainly Lucio Kiri, but the same thing like Anna Brig or Bap Brig or Lucio Bap or whatever it ends up being. I think you guys see that most of the time teams will make the same decision. Are we playing for the width of the map, or are we playing for the push pull? And when we go into our next scrim or our next like team environment, let's press tab and let's maybe try it. Let's say, okay, let's just play push pull. Let's play a push pull comp. Let's play the stack and let's see if we can play the objective win conditions. Actually, in this situation, we need to play wide. It's very rare that you just don't need to do one of these two things. In fact, I can't think of a single scenario where one of these two formations, as I call it, one of these two ideas isn't what's happening. And I think ever since we dropped down to one tank instead of two, which obviously is now 4 or 5 or 6 years, or however long Overwatch 2's been a thing for, this is basically how the game is developed. And you'll see at the top level, very, very, very rarely do we get something that isn't this. So I'm happy to open it up to the Q&A section if we have any.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much. So yeah, moving on then to Q&A. If anyone wants to come up on stage, they can. If you want to just type out your questions as well. Okay. I will try to go in order. Feel free to ask again.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi. First off, thank you for taking the time to do this seminar for us. I appreciate it. My question is more so kind of pointed towards for like coaches in particular. What would you say like the best way for coaches to get their players, ignoring like the skill disparity of like higher level and lower level, to get them to kind of understand the methodical approach of this wide and these two different formations?
Yeah. Okay. So this is, again, I use football and as an analogy for a lot of my inspiration in coaching, but I'll try to do this the best I can, and I hope I can explain it to people who don't understand football. So in football, or soccer as some people call it, obviously you've got two goals and you've got a big pitch. And the idea is we need to play really nice pass here, pass here, pass here, pass here, pass here, and then we need to kick it into the goal. And there's a very famous quote from a coach called Carlo Ancelotti, and what he says is, my job as a coach is to get the build-up play, so that this 70% of the pitch, this is all scripted, this is all team play, and the last 30% is up to my players individually to make magic happen. Okay, and what this means is, as the coach, we need to focus on this. And when I look at Overwatch, I think it's the same sort of thing. When let's say that maybe we go back to this Ilios one that we spoke about at the start, right? Well, how do I make my players understand how we want to do this? Well, the simple way to do it is to take any given team fight and then pause it and press Control I and say, it doesn't matter if we won or lost, were we in the correct formation? In this situation, if we're Team Liquid's head coach, then yeah, I think we tick the boxes, and even if we go on to die or to lose, whatever happens, we've done our job. We've understood our win condition, and we've at least set up for it. And then it's up to the players, like we as coaches, if RuPaul headshots FD God, or if FD God headshots RuPaul, it's completely out of our control. Absolutely nothing to be done. And I think in general, I really, really don't like it when coaches are like, I should be able to coach everything. I should be able to impact every single thing that happens in the server. That's my responsibility. I'm the head coach. It's not. Unfortunately, as much as we wish it was, it's not. All we can do is give them the best foundation, like the best system, the best base understanding of how we should play. And they're going to have to go. There's been so many times I've won games where I was less prepared than the other coach because my players were better. And to be honest, there's been times where I've lost where our strategy was clearly better, but their hit scan just took my hit scan's head off as much as possible. So to answer the question, I think we just need to go I always like this idea of obviously you've got let's go between team fights, okay? If we think about the voice communication, right now, red team is going to be ult tracking, right? Then they're going to be making a plan, and then they're going to take position. I want these 3 steps to be controlled by the coach. I want to make sure that our ult track is good. I want to make sure that our plan makes sense. And this is really what I look for. Once the fight starts, I as a coach, I almost never look at it. Because from overhead, I can be an absolute genius coach, which I've seen tons of. And I say, oh, well, you went right, but actually if you'd went left, there was someone there. And it's like, oh, no shit, Sherlock. You got to pause the game, put overheads on, and you were able to tell players that they should have gone left instead of right. You're so smart. The reality is we need to make sure that our foundations in terms of how we set the fight up are correct. And once the fight starts, it's in God or player's hands at that stage.
Thank you. That was very thorough.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
I have a very specific question about the new Queen Street. And I want to reference something that I saw a long time ago when Atlanta Reign had their kind of Rain and Owl with Lip playing mostly on Sombra. Something that I noticed when they played that comp a lot is that Lip would always uncloak and maybe TP back to his team to stop the enemy team into where their team wanted to play. And I was wondering, do you think maybe if they had set up a bit earlier and tried to stop the TP, this map would have gone a bit better?
I think you're 100% correct, without a shadow of the doubt. I think it's a really, really good observation because I think you're exactly right. If we want to, I'll go to there's maybe a perfect example coming up
This
right
one,
now.
yeah.
Okay. Yes. If we want to do better as T1, we have to make a decision. Either first thing, we have to know where the TP spot is going to be. This is pretty tricky because, ironically, do you know who the best team in the world at countering Sim is? It's Twisted Minds. They're the only team that's ever been able to counter Sim because they know Sim so well, And what this means is we need to know where the TP is going to go, and we need to know where the TP is going to end, and we have to make it a decision. Either we're not going to fight for this first TP, and instead, actually, what we do is we set up some sort of boa constrictor around here. So maybe in this situation, Donghack hangs above here. Maybe Zest hangs at the bottom of the map. And what we do is we say, we're going to let you TP to point, but we're going to set up our surround around the point, and then nobody gets TP'd through. No one ends up losing their tempo. Or the alternative is instead of going here, we need to go here. We needed to attack them before they can even get to that first TP. But what T1 continuously did was they fought in this middle ground, in this area where they set up to boop the TP, but they were never quick enough. And then the TP to point was always done. And then we had to reposition in order to get it. So either you need to play further back and just fight for the point because that's where TM are going to go. They have to go to the point. There's no other condition for them. Or you go even earlier and you make it even more ugly.
When you were going through it, the first thing I noticed, I was like, Zest positions on these pad are horrible. They're playing like they don't have a sim.
Without a doubt, every single fight, Zest is like, oh, yeah. And it's like, oh, well, what would do? What? Oh, fuck! Oh yeah, okay. I've done 0 damage before they got to point. And it's because even though Zest, ironically, for one of the Cranes is a pretty good sim player, they still don't have this understanding of how this comp fundamentally works.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
I have a more so general meta-ish question, I suppose. But at the moment, we're obviously in this sort of Ram Diva-ish meta with quite heavy just hold right click in main, have fun as a tank player.
Yeah.
I was just kind of wondering because I literally just got out of a tourney as well where you just got blasted. And I'm personally not like a big fan of the ram stuff where you just sit in main because it's just not interactive, right? But in these sort of metas, as a tank, do you just kind of sit there and take the L and just play for the block and just hope your team out mechanics them, or
So
like
the real answer is probably yes. For example, okay, I don't know if you followed my team SSG this year.
Bits and pieces, yeah.
But what we had a team that was quite obvious in terms of its strengths and weaknesses. Our tank was probably our best player. So for us to put our tank on Ram was actually a super negative thing because Ram takes no skill and just holds hands on the point. You know what I mean?
Interactive.
So what we did was we tried to craft strategies that played heroes that our tank could carry. Now, if I had a team where every single one of my players was the same skill level, I think Hawk would have been on Ram because it would have been the objective best thing to do in tons of situations. So maybe if you're the best player on your team, you can say, listen, I'm going to carry, put me on some carry heroes. Maybe you think that other players on your team are better than you, and then you got to take the L and fill your role. But I think ultimately that's quite difficult. You know, it's quite difficult to make that judgment. But that's how it needs to. That's how it needs to be.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like with the horrific tank design so far in Overwatch 2, if I'm being honest, because either you're Thanos or you don't get to play the game.
Yeah,
it's kind of how it is. But just, I guess it's just kind of take the L and try and enable your team as much as possible with stuff like this, I suppose.
Yeah, make as little mistakes as possible, be as don't take as many resources as possible. Like there's definitely stuff that you can do that makes it better, but yeah.
Yeah, all right. Thanks.
No problem.
Hello, thank you, Chris. So, like one of the basics you get taught in coaching is like all these kill boxes, right? So white comps always want to build a kill box. But what the sim allows is to either escape or just straight up skip those kill boxes, right? So the skill of the sim player is usually just to identify where the kill box is, and then just when to use the TP.
Without a doubt, 100%. 90% of Sim's value is not damage, it's just getting out of these early kill boxes, you know, just resetting the fight so it's 50-50 on the retakes. There's obviously loads of other stuff Sim's good at, you know, good at 1v1s and obviously good at repositioning, and you can combo with ults, and there's all sorts of stuff you can do in Sim. But I think what you said is fundamentally correct, you know, like we find a way to, okay, their kill box, they want to set up an early kill box here, I'm TPing around it, and now you have to solve another problem. You have to set up again. You have to play another wide comp. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Hello.
Hello.
I have a follow-up question on the kill boxes part and kind of how do you, because like observing scrims throughout like all of the levels, I feel like everyone tries to play rather wide than the push-pull in like even higher levels of scrimming, and I feel like is the push-pull more of a like really high level tier scrimming thing? Because I feel like it hinges a lot on these TPs that need like an insane read on the map.
Yeah.
And do you think that's implementable or no?
I think that, yeah, the wide comps are easier in a way because it just turns into a little bit of a death match, right? Like actually, it's easy to play if all we need to do is just like 1v1 and win the 1v1s. My feeling is that Sim makes this comp possible. I also think this style these teams might still be able to win without Sim. If they had a Tracer instead, and in fact, you saw that on both occasions when Sim was banned, they were able to win maps on Tracer. It's just, you then have to find a way to, instead of your whole team forcing the point, it's only your Tracer that can force, and it is harder without the Sim, without a doubt. I don't know. I guess it's been so long since I've scrimmed at like the lower levels, if you know what I mean, that I'm not entirely sure I can answer your question. I was always probably under the impression that the push pull was easier. I find especially in Europe, or at least it used to be, most teams would love to group up and play push pull because actually taking the map was quite challenging. But like I said, it's so long since I've have been trying to coach at that level that, the game has changed in the last 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, from my experience, usually we all try, like at, let's say 4 or 5 level, people try to not stack because they think that's brain dead. We just take angles. If you see someone stack, you just kill them because we have like all of the space on the map, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the opposite of what you want to do on push-pull. So I feel like, yeah.
Yeah, I guess it just depends, Like I think if we play push-pull but we stand still a lot, then you're just gonna die to the angles, And I think it's important to know that even with this comp, like if you looked at Quartz, it's not like he just stood still, Like he would do a lot of like trying to flank and like find opportunities. Like he would still take an angle, Like they would TP to the point, but they wouldn't just like take their hands off the keyboard, They're still looking for like maybe what we would call like micro angles instead of big angles, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Hello. First of all, thank you for this amazing seminar. So my question was, I'm currently coaching about 3K team, and they don't know how to play against ball at all. I've tried telling them to either ignore him completely and just let him do his thing, because most of the time he didn't kill anyone anyway, or go a full like anti-ball comp, with Hawk, not Symmetra, Sombra, like stuff like that. But it has never worked, and especially like when the enemy team can play pretty well, and like on the first map that you showed us, like when they can kind of apply the system, what can you actually do against that?
So the key, in my opinion, to beating ball, it's not necessarily to ignore. I always think if you want to beat ball, I think 9 times out of 10 we should play a push-pull style for what it's worth.
Okay.
I think it's really, really difficult to play a split style against ball because there's too much isolated targets, which ball's excellent against. And this is the same against playing against a lot of dive tanks. Okay, in Pro Overwatch we use this term turns, right? Like we have this idea of like it's our turn, it's their turn. With ball, you have to be really, really good on his turns. So hopefully as we go through here, we might see an example in a second if Infected actually does something where he's going to go in and he's going to slam maybe now, and then hopefully at some point he maybe presses E and he uses his shield. He's played pretty low resources, but now, for example, he's used roll, he's lost HP. We now have a turn, and in this turn we need to do something. 2 conditions: push and get a kill or force resources on the rest of the team, or get to the objective. If we do one of these 2 things when their ball doesn't have a turn, then his next turn is going to be less significant, because either his team's already dead or he has to roll on to point where we have it. If we do something where their ball uses a turn and is behind us and is resetting, and all we do is stand still, then this is where ball becomes incredibly painful, because he's going to come in again and he's going to look for, for another slam. Maybe he's going to press E. Again, we've dealt with this. We have to do something now. That if we're red team right now, we have to play the game now. We have to get some sort of sizable advantage, a kill, an objective, or maybe all of their resources. If we don't, if we allow him to kind of to come back in, because even here, this isn't really a turn. He doesn't have shield. He's only got like slight armor, Like we could have moved. We needed to move, but maybe we're a little bit slow, or maybe we give him we give him another go. But I don't think that there is another solution apart from that. It's he's going to be in, and then he's going to have 5 seconds where he's out. Obviously, if it's Winston, it's easier, right? Because he uses bubble. Okay, our turn. Let's push. Ball is more tricky like that. But we have to be active in the moments where he can't impact the game.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, we have a question from Task Force. They ask, how do you recommend applying this wide and narrow mindset in scrims?
I think as long as you guys talk about it before you get into the server, like, okay, we're going to try to play really wide. Like you should always, like, I think it's quite healthy in a lot of scrim environments to just say, well, okay, listen, we're going to try something this block. Okay, if we win, we win. We lose, we lose. But what we're going to do across the next 2 hours is we're going to play every map as wide as possible. We're going to see if we can figure out the communication, and we can say, if we all come to the same idea of we're just going to fully limit test playing wide. Like we're going to play wide in maps and situations where we know it's bad because we just want to really test the limits. that's how you're going to learn it. You know, you have to be willing to take a few L's in order to get the W. That's what they say. You know.
Hi, thanks for coming. My question is about the new Queen Street match where you were talking about TVNT pushing the bot. My question is, when I was looking at it, it feels like he could have done more than actually just push the point. Maybe I missed something that you said. I'm not quite sure. I was hoping if you could take a look at that and tell me what could he have done better in that situation.
So he could not have done more. Okay, he could have done it better. So I think there's going to be a timing early on where, like, I think maybe it's in a few minutes time where maybe it's the one here where he's going to be the first to die because he uses his block, and maybe in this moment, like he needs to find like a better way to be safe. You know, like maybe he thinks he's safe and then he kind of realizes like, but I think it's really important everybody understands this. Okay, if you want to win a game of Overwatch, you have to move the bot further than they do. It doesn't matter who gets kills. Like, it doesn't matter anything else, you know? So in this comp, and I think whenever I coach push pull comps, I always do the same where I say someone has the objective responsibility. Someone has to always be on the point, you know, always trying to fight for it. His job is only to do this. TVNT probably ended this map with like 0 kills, you know, like 0 kills, 20 minutes on the bot. That's fine. He does. There was no more to do because, like, if we have a comp where nobody can touch the point, then we can never win. Even if we spawn camp them, if we can't move the point, then we can't win. So in this system, the tank's job is to move the point. He doesn't need to do more. He can't do more. He just needs to do this. Maybe he can play his life better in some situations. I agree with you there. Like, I don't think he plays this optimally. Like, I think twice he dies between form timings. But I don't want him to shoot anyone. I don't want him to do anything else. I just need him to move the point, really.
If you don't mind me asking, why don't you want him to shoot people? Like, yes, he's on the point. Yes, he's pushing the point, but what's the harm in just pressing mouse 1 on an enemy?
Well, of course he's allowed to press mouse 1, right? But if he wants to kill Skewed, can he kill Skewed and touch the point?
Doesn't seem that likely.
Yeah, so he has to make the decision.
Because you can just get out, and
yeah, if
he doesn't have the chasing potential.
Yeah, exactly. So if something is standing on point, then TVNT is going to get his fists and he's going to punch them, okay, and he's going to get the kills. But if he has to make a decision between moving the robot or taking a 1v1, his job is to move the point. Fundamentally, that's his job. And I think at the highest level, you're going to see that a lot. Everybody has a job. What's Astro's job? Well, Astro's job is to stay with the hit scan and boop the ball. His job is to peel. It doesn't matter if he gets kills or not. His job is to peel the ball, you know? Maybe Quartz, his job is just kill everything where possible, you know? Like maybe Quartz has like what we would call a free roll, you know? But you're going to find this all the time, you know? Like in a lot of situations, it's going to be the tracer that has to just go to the point because my tank's job is to kill the backline or to zone the backline, you know? But we have no one that can zone the backline and we have no one that can touch points. So unfortunately, TVNT's job is just to hold hands and touch the point.
I see. Regarding what you said about him playing his life a little bit better, is it alright if I also ask if you look at those moments specifically, those two where he died, can tell me how he could have played a little bit better?
I don't know. This one, I think it's slightly tricky because I think one of the issues he's got is because he needs to be on the point. He's also like he's pretty reliant on his team to get heals. You know, I think as he goes here, like maybe he didn't need to form so early, or maybe what he needed to do in reality was like if he recognized the situation he's in, maybe he needs to come back to his team, start up high ground, and then once he gets his next form, drop and block the cart under. So instead of just always staying on the low ground, it's like I'll move it, I'll get my form forced, I'll come back here, and then I'll drop again. I think on the other one that he does, I think this one is more of an egregious mistake. Maybe this one. Well, actually, this one, to be honest, even this one, it's not his fault because everybody else TP'd on their backline. But I think it's just like in this moment, he gets like he's playing like He uses form, he cancels form. He thinks he's safe. The reality is he needed to make a decision like 2 seconds ago to just wait for his next form. And then he can probably play like this. It's just he just gets caught with his pants down a little bit. I think that's all.
All right. Thank you for explaining this. I really appreciate it.
Right, we have a question from Fletch007. In your opinion, will narrower push-pull playstyle always be something that teams will have to know? It kind of seems like Overwatch 2 developers have moved away from these kind of metas every time they've happened. Example, Junker Queen release, Mauga, Juno Brig, with nerfs to these heroes.
Yes, but push-pull is always going to be the dominant strategy as long as Kiriko stays OP. And Kiriko sells so many skins that Kiriko is just going to stay OP because actually Blizzard's intention is not to make a balanced game, it's to make money. And what I think the reality is, if we do look at like the end metas, like think about the start of this stage, everyone was playing Ball, Wuyang, Genji, Tracer, this new meta. What did it end up in? It ended up in Ram Sim, you know? Think about EWC. It was Ram, Lucio comps, you know? Even the China line, it's the same thing, you know? Last season, Mauga comps, Juno Brig comps, push-pull almost is always the meta in some way, you know? There's too many good ground tanks. Lucio Kiri is too strong. If you're a team that can't play push-pull, you are never going to win, in my opinion. You have to learn this style. It's way more important to learn push-pull than to learn wide style.
Okay. We have another question from Katsumi. What types of strategies for meta play can translate well into average competitive play? How can you develop a good game IQ without the same level of communication?
Yeah, so in just comp play, it's the wide comps which translates better, because to be good at wide comps, you have to be able to identify where the space on the map is. You have to be able to take specific flanks. You have to know when you're free and you need to go carry the game versus when the enemy team is looking to mark you or fight you. And obviously the most important thing in ranked is your ability to deathmatch and kill people. So the style of how you want to play Wuyang or you want to play Tracer in ranked and in wide comps, it's pretty similar. Push-pull is impossible without communication. So to play a proper push-pull comp in ranked, it's all like it just almost never happens because you need people talking and it's almost impossible.
Awesome. Yeah, I actually myself have 2 quick questions. One, what's gonna determine whether you want to go with your composition for more of that wide play or the push pull? Because I noticed there were like 2 different Zarya comps on different maps, and the King's Row, I believe, the defense one wanted to do wide, while the one in Ilios, I believe it was Ruins, wanted to do a push-pull.
So, the first thing that probably determines it more than anything is our team's strengths and weaknesses. One thing that is quite interesting about professional Overwatch is very rarely, like if you have a team that understands push-pull, they're almost always terrible at playing wide because they see the game differently. Their brains don't work that way. So if we look at Twisted Minds, at Alcad, at Falcons is a really good example. SSG, my team, we could never play wide because we required like, okay, resources down, push, resources that pull. If you're a team again like T1, they understand the map in wide, and they obviously have like effectively they have like 2 supports who are good at these heroes, so that their comp is designed for it. So they will always lean more into it. The only other thing is maps, right? Like we spoke about King's Row. I didn't show you the attack on King's Row, but both teams ended up playing push-pull on the attack because it's really hard to play wide on King's Row. You know, like it's just going to be easy to play Lucio and play push-pull. So the map is going to determine it a lot, but what's going to determine it more than anything is knowledge of your team's strengths and weaknesses.
Awesome. And my other quick question is, you mentioned you don't like Tracer with Lucio, right? Say you're looking to do like 2 kinds of groupings, like a DPS and a support, and you have like a hit scan Kiri, then Tracer and Lucio. How would you split them instead, or would you not split them, or?
So the reason I like if we're playing Lucio Kiri, most of the time Lucio Kiri is a push-pull comp. But Lucio Kiri is often, sometimes played in a wide style. So let's say we're playing Junker Queen Genji, Lucio Kiri Sojin. A lot of the time, my Lucio Genji are going to play as a group and we're going to play at a side fight, you know? Like that is definitely a way that we can play. The problem is Tracer Lucio fundamentally doesn't make sense because Tracer doesn't need anyone to be with her in order to push their backline. Tracer has enough resources fundamentally to do it by herself that it would be more valuable for my Lucio to pocket my hit scan around, for example. So in that comp situation, I'll say 9 times out of 10, because there is some situations where teams will go Lucio Tracer just to open up the map, but I would say 9 times out of 10, I would rather give as much pocket to my hit scan as possible and let my Tracer figure it out. Let's say I'm playing Ana Kiri Tracer. Well, Kiri Tracer is really good synergy on the sides, you know, like the healing, the way it works, like we can TP to each other. Like it's just that the raw synergy of Lucio Tracer is pretty terrible in my opinion. Lucio Genji, it's way better because if you dash in, well, Lucio can follow up on that and stuff. So for me, it's not that Lucio Tracer is bad per se. It's more the inner synergies are Tracer partners better with Wu and stuff.
Makes sense. Thank you.
I have another question. So this is one of them is going to be like a more like personal question. And then another one is about Vendetta. Who in your like career do you feel was your favorite player to coach?
Favorite player to coach. Funny Astro is definitely up there because I think he's like, I always like to coach players that have the least ego and the least baggage attached to them. I got on really well with Poco. Our relationship was really good. All of the London guys, like Hadi, I think was probably the player that I impacted with my coaching more than anyone. Like I think me and Hadi saw the game very, very similar towards the end, and I felt if I was able to explain a concept to Hadi, Hadi is going to be able to explain it to the team the best. So maybe it's probably I'll go Hadi or Astro.
Okay. And then the early thoughts on Vendetta. Like, do you think it's going to shake up the meta a lot?
I think so. Yeah, I think every new hero that comes out is always broken. That's just a fact. Okay, so there's that always happens. I think too. It's possible that the way Vendetta's kit works with the ult stuff, I think she might be insane against Sim. You all group up. I feel like there's so much AoE damage. I actually think it's possible that this is like a really good hero in dive comps. But you know, who knows? It'll definitely be broken at the start because it literally always is.
Thank you.
Hi. I just wanted to ask about like Saudi ELEAGUE going into grand finals, kind of like meta. I know like TM has no coach, but do you know why they're like kind of counter comping Sim on like Zarya, Freya, Echo, and then once we like go to grand finals, they're just like mirroring Alcad on Sim, and then like I guess an extension of that is like how are they like beating Alcad in like the Sim mirrors? Like how do they come out as a better team?
So the reason that they were counter-comping at the start was because every time they mirrored, they lost. So if you look at previous SELs and you look at EWC and you look at EU or WCS, Alcad were winning every big game between those in the sim mirror. And like I said before, there is no team in the world that understands how to disrupt the TP better than TM. You know, they like if we in the VOD that we have on our screen right now, T1 were pretty terrible at disrupting this, but because TM would play with Hazard, they would wall the TP. They would make it impossible to TP to the point where in a lot of the series they played this year, Alcad wouldn't even play Sim against them because they just had it fully figured out. And I think it is ironic that nobody in this tournament had enough respect for the EU teams that no one looked at and said we should copy what TM did. That TM figured it out and no one copied them. As for why UB played the grand finals, because Alcad beat them in the winners finals, Yubi is just the type of guy, he's just going to go, listen, let me play, I'm going to carry this. And the thing that when they play with Yubi, if you ever listen to TM's comms, he calls everything. He is like, he's the best in-game leader in the history of Overwatch, without a doubt, you know. And when it's clutch and it's pressure, he's the one that continues. Like, that's why he wins so many of these big tournaments, because under pressure, he's always the best leader possible, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
No problem.
Hey again. I guess my question follows up a bit on the last one, but how do you like properly IGL? Because it's something I've never really been able to grasp. Because like obviously the fight planning stuff's pretty straightforward generally, because like you have this, so you want to use it in that regard, you know. But just generally speaking, how does one IGL properly, from your experience?
I mean, it's a pretty tricky question, because
Mhm.
it's like, in a way, it's like, oh, how do I play really good Overwatch? You know, well,
Yeah.
there's probably a lot of factors. I think the reality is that the planning phase is the most important. And what really good IGLs do, they're able to predict the next, what's going to happen in a team fight. So like maybe we've TP'd to point and we've used Symbol, like UB is really going to know, okay, they're going to clock, and he's going to predict where they're going to clock from. So we maybe in my teams I've coached previously, we took this idea of lose conditions, in terms of like, in this moment they have grabbed. Lose condition is those 5 people standing together and getting grabbed. So even as we're fighting and we're killing, don't group for grab, care grab, stuff like this is really, really, really important communication, because it stops us losing. Like, don't get too close, they have rush, or whatever it ends up being. So not only is his plan section going to be really good, what's likely to happen most of the time is he's going to be able to identify what's going to happen next before it happens, and warn everyone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's kind of like try and make sure like you identify their win condition and then try and avoid playing into that.
Yes. It's also worth noting that depending on the hero you play, IGL is pretty tricky. Like,
Yeah.
Sugar-Free on our team, he's a really good in-game leader, but if he's playing Tracer, he can't, because he doesn't see enough, you know? Like
it's Tracer, yeah.
Whereas if you're Sim, you see everything because you're in the middle of everyone, so it's easier to do that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm a tank player, so it's pretty straightforward. But yeah. Thanks.
No problem.
Hello again.
Hello.
I had met with a Korean coach at some point to do a VOD, and one of the things we talked about a lot was chess mindset. And I feel like from my experience, a lot of NA teams, at least back in the day and maybe even still now, would cope and just try to force something as fast as possible and then run in. And sometimes it's a bit hard to deal with. I know that a lot of people have said that NA is a bit struggling and needs to step up recently. How do you think that like North America as a whole can try to implement, game understanding more and such like that?
So, I don't, for what it's worth, I don't agree with the mystery Korean coach in question. I think we look at the team that's beaten Korea, it's Europe, but they haven't done it by playing chess. What Europe's done is they've built mechanically strong rosters, and they've invented a style that is so well-rounded and unique to them. The problem NA has is NA effectively plays the same comps as Korea, but with less mechanically skilled player in every position, so there's no way to win. There's no one that can argue that these Korean teams are better at sim than European teams, right? Like, that seems to be a clear fact. And across all the heroes that they end up playing, these EU teams, they do it their way, and they just do it better. So there was no chess element or counter elements or game understanding elements. It's, this is how we play, and we're going to play at such a high level that you can't beat it.
Fair enough.
Hello, ChrisTFer.
Hello.
So my question is, can you play the push-pull without like a Lucio? Because my college team does not have a Lucio player. We do play Juno sometimes, but we may not play Anakiri or Kiri Ruyang or something.
The answer is probably not. Certain teams, like these teams, if Lucio got banned, they would try to play like Juno Sim which are maybe like the 2 heroes which can allow you to play the style, but that's only because they're desperate. The reality is, if you don't have a Lucio player, you should play it as wide as possible on as many maps as possible. And what I would actually do instead is, assuming that you get to play like bans, I would actually start to think about specific bans on the maps where wide is difficult. So if a team picks Lijiang Tower, you should think about banning Lucio there to force both teams to try to play wide.
We don't have bans in our college league, but we would really do want them because it's like it helps so much. But
yeah,
okay, thank you.
Then
Tonight.
it's tricky, really tricky without a Lucio player on some maps, because I tried that this
Wait,
season.
our Lucio player is technically on tank, but
Yeah.
it's a weird situation in our team.
That's also going to make it tricky.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. So I'm just looking for clarification really on the win conditions of wide and push pull. Which my understanding of wide is that the enemies can't really hide because you always have an angle that can see the space you want to fight for. Is that off, or is that part of the win condition of wide?
Yeah, I mean, it's more or less right. I think the reality of like the wide style is the idea that if we have better positions and we always play comps with more damage, the longer the fight goes on, the more likely my team is to get a pick. Like if we freeze and nobody can move, we're always going to win the deathmatch because I've got a Wu Yang on high ground spamming and a Kiri over here spamming. So that's the win condition, is to be able to take more good positions on the map and then just kind of sit still to a degree. And our comp, like very rarely do you play a wide comp that doesn't have more damage, because then you're I don't know what you've picked, you know. Like whatever support you pick instead of Lucio will always have more damage and more kill potential. So I think that's more or less the win condition. Is just it's picks more than anything, you know. Consistent pressure until something falls over.
Sure. And the win condition of push pull being like spikes of directed pressure instead of the passive spread out pressure.
The ability to speed onto a target which can't survive it, or in order to control the objective, and win through objective pressure. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. But in theory, would there be a combination of the two that is like perfect Overwatch, where you have map control that you play with the spikes of pressure that you have in your cooldowns and the enemy cooldowns?
Only if and when Blizzard invents a speed hero that also does tons of damage. The push pull requires speed, but every speed hero, which is obviously only 2 of them, by default doesn't have enough utility or damage to control angles. So it's impossible for it to be both unless they bring out like a super Lucio who has Wu Yang balls and speed, and then the game's over. Speed has been the most broken mechanic in Overwatch since Overwatch 1, when I started playing 9 years ago. It's the single most important factor. It's the reason that Lucio has been meta since the start and to this day, is because it's the single, like it's more important than healing or damage or anything. Speed is the number one factor in Overwatch, but you can't play push pull without speed. And if you pick a speed hero, then you never have damage effectively.
That makes sense. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, we have a question from someone who I can't read because I'm recording and it's on streamer mode for Discord. Sorry about that. But have any of your players gone through burnout from Overwatch and the best ways to overcome it?
Yes. Actually, almost every single one. A lot of them don't overcome it. I think a lot of people decide to take breaks. I know that players who are older in their career will kind of embrace a mindset of, during the regular season or at the start, I will actually not put much time into ranked or VODs, and I will focus on my real life, with the idea of that once we get to playoffs, then I'm gonna lock in. And obviously, when we were all young, we just lock in 12 months of the year. We'd just be permanently locked in. But if you're 30 like me, that 24/7 lock in, it's a little bit harder than than it used to be. As opposed to, I don't know, just take breaks. I think what I always tell people is, it's kind of cliche maybe, but unless anyone here is getting paid to play Overwatch and it's a job, if you're not enjoying it, then you are effectively wasting your time, you know? This is ultimately a hobby, and the best players are always the ones that enjoy it. If you genuinely don't enjoy playing Overwatch, you're never going to get good at it. It's just impossible. You know, you could only get good at something if you enjoy doing it. So if you just need to take a break or even consider doing something else, you know, that's fine too. I talk to people sometimes and they just don't enjoy Overwatch, and they're just grinding because they've gotten so good at it that they think they almost like owe it to themselves. But once you've got to that mindset, you're never going to make it anyway. I've never met someone who like hated the game in tier 2 and made it as a pro. Every single tier 2 that made it as a pro loved Overwatch and wanted to do Overwatch as much as possible. And then maybe once they reach the top and they've done it for a while, then they kind of run out of steam.
Hello, thanks for having me, ChrisTFer. My question has to do with, you previously mentioned the Kiriko being OP, and we see like in competitive play she's played widely different than in pro play. Do you think she needs a rework, and how would you rework Kiriko?
I think the reality is that cleanse is the biggest reason Kiri is strong, or one of the reasons is every other flex support in the game. So think like BAP, Ana, Zen, technically. If you get dived or if you get pressured, you die, you know? And that's the way that for a long time, that's how Overwatch was designed. Is Zen does more damage than any other hero in Overwatch, you know? Like people don't think that, but if Discord counted towards damage, he would be the single biggest damage dealer in the game. But his weakness is if you breathe at him, he dies, you know? Ana's the same. Anti-nade is incredibly impactful. Sleep is incredibly impactful. You do a lot of damage, you do a lot of healing. But good game design means that you can do all those things and there is a risk to reward. If people get on top of you, you die. Kiri has all of the upsides of those heroes, does tons of healing, has an ability in Suzu which counters every ult in the game. Oh, they have I don't know, whatever ult it is, they have EMP, or well, as long as I have Suzu for it, then I might be able to outplay, you know, or they've just hit me with Bola, or I'll just cleanse that off you, you know. But if you get on Kiri, good luck, you know, like you got to catch her again. She's going to TP you away and you got to do it again. So I would nerf cleanse first. Probably both her cooldowns just need to go up. But she sells a lot of skins, so don't count on it, okay?
So then a follow-up question: if the enemy team is playing very heavily around the Kiriko for her heals and Suzu, how do you actually counter that?
I don't think you can, to be honest with you. I mean, you can.
You can, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone's successfully ever countered Kiriko. That's why she has like 100% playtime when she's not banned. Like, I don't think there's been a single map this tournament where if Kiri was open, someone wasn't playing Kiri, to be honest.
All right, thanks for your time.
No problem.
Thanks.
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you.
Okay, it's me again. I wanted to ask something regarding what you said before about Tracer Lucio not being a good composition, and how Genji Lucio is a much better composition because Lucio can follow up. See, I, as a Genji player, have a Lucio on my Overwatch team in this org, and I was wondering to ask, how would you position, because I know Genji is supposed to be like pincer hero with the tank. I don't understand all the time how can my Lucio always keep up with me, because we've had scrims, for example, where, for example, I would be on an off angle, we try to go down on a target, but I'll need to stabilize, and my Lucio is not with me because he is supporting the team because the team is under pressure. And I was wondering if you could help me understand a little bit better, when is the Lucio supposed to play with the Genji, and when is it supposed that the Genji plays more with the team?
So the first thing I'll say, just so we're on the same page, is you said that I said that Lucio Tracer wasn't a good composition. That's not what I said. It's just they're not a good partnership. Lucio Tracer are brilliant in the same team comp, just not playing together in the comp. Do you know what I mean?
My bad. My bad. Sorry.
Yeah. As opposed to Lucio Genji, here's normally how I see it. If we need to retake the map, we need to press tab and we need to make a specific decision. If we have enough good ults, let's say we've got Beat and Kirill, I don't think we should flank. I think we should just play the front to back because our ults should get us over the line. If we don't have any ults, us stacking is never going to work. We're never going to be able to retake. So Lucio Genji should almost always flank there. If my Lucio has Beat, never flank because your beat is always going to be shit if you're on the flank. I think if we have Kirill, to be honest, it's the same. I don't think you should flank on those timings there because we really want the Lucio in the Kirill. But in neutrals, in first fights, in ult fights in general, where we don't have many ults, I think it's okay to send Lucio and Genji to mark the side and look to make a carry play through the side.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
Right. I don't see any more questions, but I actually have one that I've been thinking about now. In terms of wide matchup versus push-pull, you gave us a good idea. But what about wide matchup versus wide matchup? You say, like, wide matchup, you watch for where the push-pull is going, which lane they're controlling, and try to float into the rest.
Right.
So what are they looking to do there?
So wide matchups are actually going to be the most. Okay, I'll show you on paint because this is like, so 9 times out of 10. Okay, let me get, where's my paint? 9 times out of 10, what we're going to see is let's say like, fuck off. Let's say Wu, Tracer, and then let's say Soj, Kiri. Let's say both teams have a Zarya. What will often happen is the enemy team will mirror this. So we'll have like a Wu Tracer, and then we'll have a Zarya, Soj, and Kiri. And it ultimately becomes kind of a skill matchup. If both teams mirror each other's flex DPS, then the person who needs to carry is the Sojans for both teams. They need to solo flank, or they need to take high grounds, or they need to do whatever. If the tracers on this side are not matching, then what needs to happen is both backlines need to care that the Wu tracer is coming from the other side, and my Wu tracer has to kill their backline. So the first thing that we always have to think about is, are the sides matching? If so, my Soj needs to carry, and it's probably just a skill matchup. Just shoot their heads, don't get shot in the head. The only other thing that you'll see a lot of teams do in wide v wide is the concept of overloading. I don't know if you guys know this, you've heard of this, but it's the idea of, okay, if we have 2 people fighting top, the first team that's able to get someone from this side into this group to turn it into a 3v2 always wins. So if my Kiri can get involved here, if I have a ball instead of a Zarya, if I can win through the side, then I think that's the best way of doing it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, I can.
Hey, thanks for having me. I have a question about comps in sim comps or like IGLing. I play sim for like my team, and I feel like it's like, although like I can see why IGLing on sim is quite easy compared to other characters because you can see everything and like so much of the team rotations is like on my shoulders. But I feel like just due to how many options there are with like TP, you can TP your Hitscan and Lucio to somewhere, and like overall there are much more uses for TP besides just like full team rotations. And like I'm kind of like having like troubles with like integrating it into my like gameplay. Like sometimes I don't know if I should like TP my Hitscan or like full rotate with my team, and I'm like also not sure if that's something that like I should be like the one who's like calling that out or like something with my team. Like I'm not really having a lot of insight to how actual like teams do that, and that's like a lot of options, and like I would like to ask for like a tip on that.
So I think if you want to be a good sim player, you actually have to really accept the responsibility of being a shot caller. You can't be a good sim player if you don't call it. Like it's one of the only roles in Overwatch where you have to do it. It has to be you in 9 times out of 10. And all of the best sim players in the world, you know, UB, Checkmate, Backbone, they all did a huge amount of like the planning and the communication. In theory, you know, your hit scan, if they want to go to a high ground, they can call it, but I haven't seen a team that's successful at sim that doesn't have their sim call everything, to be honest.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have 2 questions from Alex. When should a tank play up to take space, and when should they just be on the objective? This was back to the new Queen Street. Is it just a game mode dependent circumstance?
Yes and no. The first thing you need to understand is you need to press tab and understand who needs to touch point. Because we have sim, no one can touch point here. Like it has to be the tank. So you are gonna have to not take space. If I load up let's see, there must be a good example here. Let's see this one. Let's see who's playing here. Okay. For example, in this situation, I think actually Tracer is not banned right now, but let's say, for example, Hawk in a lot of situations can actually play aggressively because other people on my team can touch the point. If we in every Overwatch comp, you need someone, at least one person has to be the the cart bot, someone that goes on it. A lot of the time, Tracer can touch point, and then obviously like Diva can play to fly up and make something happen. I think that's the most important thing. When we play with Sim, or maybe in this situation because we play with Echo, there isn't really a good cart person. So Hawk has to really be the first one to think about the objective. And I'm sure if we look at like the very first fight, for example here, Hawk is obviously just going to be in a situation where he's playing underneath, but he's for sure going to think about the payload once it starts to open. Like who can touch? Yeah, no one. So it's going to well, he gets booped. Well, yeah, okay, thank God. It's going to have to be him, But if we had a Tracer, then maybe my Tracer could have blinked here, and Tracer could have touched the point, and it could have been fine.
All right. They also asked, how do you roadmap comms? And I asked them to clarify. They meant with fight planning, like who has comm priority, with scouting, ult tracking. Better wording is, how do you build good comming habits?
So we need to kind of keep comms as uncluttered as possible. We do need all of these things. We need scouting, we need ult tracking, we have fight plans. I think a lot of people you talk to have this idea of it's like, oh, everybody, if you have a ult, you need to make the plan. And if you don't have a ult, someone else should do it. And then it becomes like this really nice communism style thing where everybody chips in. But the reality is the best Overwatch teams in the world, they run like dictatorships, okay? Most of the time, it's one person who's going to take the vast majority, or maybe you've got like a group, like one or two people that do it. And I think that a lot of, especially like NA coaches I see, where they really hate this idea of just having a solo shot caller. They think it's outdated, but it couldn't be further from the truth. Most teams that only have one shot caller it's way better.
Hello again.
Hello.
Okay, so my first question was, I have quite a few now. I have 4.
Okay.
So both my teams are pretty new. What would you recommend to tell them, like comms wise? Like, what should they focus on? Because they can't focus on everything yet. Like, they just don't have the
Just
brain capacity yet.
Yeah, just set the goal above all else of we're going to make sure that our comms between the fights are really clean. So we're going to record the
Okay.
board, and every single fight there needs to have been an ult track and a plan. If we get that, then that's kind of step 1. And then mid-fight communication is tricky because some people need to have
Yeah.
ears, and ears are something I've learned that a lot of players don't have, and it's actually a skill that's uncoachable. Plug to the podcast.
Yeah.
Once you have players that I know, pro players that don't have ears, and nothing can be done. Nothing at all can be done if you don't have ears.
Mhm.
I would start with that. Start if you want to build a good communication structure. It all starts with your pre-fight. That's where most of good teams make
Yeah.
wins. So really focus on the planning and review the plans. Here we called to do this, but could we have done something better? Try to dive deep into the plans. Then after that, I don't know, it gets a little bit more tricky, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, my next question is, I didn't listen before like that much, but is it still possible to play this push-pull comp without Lucio?
Not really.
Okay. Yeah, I thought so. I wasn't sure. And last scrim, my team played poke on circuit, and they were defending, but the enemy team had a sim, and once the sim TP'd behind them, they completely collapsed. Is there anything they could have done in that situation?
You just have to know where the TP is likely to go. Like if a sim team is able to catch you by surprise, it will always win. If every single thing, all of your brain power goes towards where are they likely to TP, and you save cooldowns to escape, or you save cooldowns to shoot the TP, that's the only way to beat it. If a lot of lower level teams are just shooting and calling, oh, this guy's 1 HP, this is 1 HP, and then the sim TP is like, oh, I didn't expect that. If you ever get caught by a sim TP, you can't win. So that's that.
Okay.
It's not great advice, but it's true, unfortunately.
So are they still supposed to turn all around, or is it still like should one still be facing forward, like
I don't know.
fighting
It's
the tank or
tough.
whatever?
It's tough because every situation is different. You know, like if they all
Yeah.
TP behind us, we need to try to like recover position, like get back into position. But
Okay.
it's tough. It's really tough to answer.
Yeah, okay, I thought it is a very complicated situation. And my
Yeah.
last question was, this is a bit more personal or not like game related that much, but how did you actually get good at coaching and how did you like build your way up?
It is a good question. I don't know. I think one thing that I felt when I was a pro player and I was doing like World Cup and all of this stuff was I was always the in-game leader. I was always the captain of every team I was on. So I always had like, I suppose, the innate like coaching or maybe leadership skills would be the best way of doing it, which I
Yeah.
think is a big part. I think there's tons of players that I've coached who are way better than me but would never be a good coach because they don't like to lead or tell people what to do or whatever.
Okay.
In terms of the rest of it, I got lucky that I was coached by good coaches when I was a player, so I was able to kind of steal or understand the way they saw the game and then kind of build onto it. Like I take huge inspiration from a lot of football coaches. I've read tons of autobiographies of various coaches, so I try to take a little bit from everyone. But I think specifically with the way that I see the game from an in-game level, that's very much taken from one or two coaches that used to coach me.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
No problem.
Right, we're getting very close to time. See a couple more questions. Someone asks if Hanzo should usually be played by the flex DPS or the hit scan.
Hit scan.
And they were asking
Always
about why, because of the aim styles and traditional projectile versus hit scan definitions.
It's because the Hanzo, like it's nothing to do with the aim styles. It's that if you want to have a balanced team comp, you need to have a hero that shoots people like a hit scan and a hero that like takes the map or touches the point or like effectively provides utility or the ability to mark something. If you play with Ashe and Hanzo, I can't touch the point, I can't flank, I can't dive their backline. There's almost nothing that I lose too much utility that even if I have someone who's better at that aim style, the comp itself doesn't work.
Okay. If you have a brand new team, how do you set up a good in-game structure? Where do you get started in setting it up?
So, first thing is play one or two different comps. Play like only push pull or only wide style, and give everybody like you're gonna play this hero or this hero. You know, don't play everything and everything. Try to give everybody a role. This is something even in Overwatch League we would do a lot, where it's like your role is the main support is to peel this character, to mark Tracer, and to use your beat in this situation, and try to do that as much as possible. Like give everybody like an idea of how they want to use their role. Give everybody like an idea of like their basic role within the team, and then you're probably more or less on the right track. You're in a situation where you can kind of start to build it from there.
Right. What does a good engage sound like in communication at pro level between FDPS and tank, etc.?
It normally comes with some sort of like question or can you go Anna? Can you go this? And then it's if you have a teammate with good ears, it's either yes, I can go or no, give me 4 seconds. And then it normally has some sort of countdown, 3, 2, 1, go. And then it results in you killing the lobby.
Right. All right, we have 2 minutes left. We have back to Lucio Tracer. If it's a Tracer mirror, would it be beneficial to send Lucio Tracer pre-fight to help their Tracer win the angle and then join core?
Yeah, I think that's fine in a lot of situations. I think as long as you know their Tracer isn't on your Kiri and you know your team isn't looking to speed engage, then you don't really need to be with them. So I think you're definitely right. Like you can for sure do that. If their Tracer is behind us, then you can't be with your Tracer. You need to be ready to peel their Tracer. Let's say, like I said previously, like if we have like Beat and Kirill, I really don't want you to flank much because I really want us to be able to take the opportunity immediately when we can use one of those support ults.
All right, and this next one's going to be our last question for the night.
I just wanted to ask a little bit more regarding the communication stuff. In our team, we want to develop a form where usually the supports are leading the calls before the mess starts in the fight, and after that, tank usually takes the lead. So far, we've been getting decent results, but I wanted to ask a little bit more. How should communication typically look in an actual scenario? Like, take a random scenario from one of these matches or from the top of your head, if you'd like, and just I would appreciate if you could tell me how that works.
So most teams will have 1 or 2 shot callers, but most of the time it's just who's good as it. It's actually not about the role. I would say that support is the least common role to have shot callers these days. Mostly it's DPS or tank. But every team is different, and it's actually it's not super important who, like which player is the leader. It's which person is the best leader. Do you know what I mean? So if your supports understand the game well, have really good like communication styles, and they feel comfortable doing that, then they can be your leaders for sure. If your tank is better at them, then it can be your tank. The priority, in my opinion, should be who's the best caller as opposed to what position do they play.
All right. Would you say also that even though, for example, let's say DPS heroes, flex DPS heroes like Genji, they cannot always shot call because they don't have all the vision. Would you also say that, like, aside like some specific scenarios, their words can also carry weight despite their lack of vision? And what scenarios would those be?
I think if you're like, if you're playing a flanker like a Tracer or a Genji and you're on the flank, then the main benefit that you're gonna have is you should at least be able to know, wait, nobody's on me, that means they're pushing or something. You should be at least able to help massively with like the scouting or like warning calls. Like they might be pushing, be careful. It's a lot harder for you to call an engages Tracer because you can't see what's happening, but you at least might know how many people are looking at you. And then a really good call as a Tracer player is like, two of them on me, can you guys push, you know? Because what you've done is you've effectively said, okay, well, 2 people are looking at me, that means by default there's a 4v3 somewhere else on the map. You guys should look to use it, you know? And beyond that, it isn't too much else that I think we're going to be able to do.
I see. So what you're basically saying is that, as for example, my role, like, as a flex CPS, my role is basically to suggest certain situations that might come our way based off my current status.
Yeah,
Correct?
I think that's a good way of saying it.
All right. Thank you for explaining that. I hope I didn't take the spotlight from everybody else, and it was an honor to speak with you.
No, thank you.
All right, and we are at time. So thank you so much for coming out and presenting that. I'm sure a lot of people learned a lot of great things and answering all our lots of questions. But
no, my pleasure. Thank you guys for all having me.
Yeah, I'll put out your socials and stuff like that if you have those after this. Everyone can follow, you know, just see what else ChrisTFer gets up to.
Yeah, all good. Okay, thank you guys. I appreciate it. Hopefully see you guys again in the future. Bye.